Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the Breakfast Club. I'm your host, Sword Sage. So, there was a documentary that I'd watched a while back featuring Gore Vidal, and in it he was discussing what some people are calling the national security state. And Gore Vidal, if you don't know, is someone who is well known for critiquing a lot of what he finds to be the major faults in American politics. He's not particularly a fan of how things are going, to put it mildly. One of the things that he critiques a lot and points out a lot is how, when it comes to politics and media in the United States, facts don't really enter into things. It's more about the illusion of things. It's more about how things are portrayed. And that the media pretty much goes along with that. Instead of presenting facts, they give narratives, and people are supposed to follow these narratives. It's not really all that surprising to hear this particular charge, especially when you consider how politics are portrayed in the United States. You could take, for example, the campaigns that go on in the United States and how, like presidential campaigns and senatorial campaigns. They tend to be run not by, people who care about facts. They're more run by, ad companies, advertising managers. The sorts of people who, as Noam Chomsky once said, are there to sell us toothpastes and cars. They're not there to present us facts. The marketing people tend to be the types who try to get us to go for something based on impulse, on passions, on emotion. They're not really there to present us facts so that we can come up with a rational decision after, analyzing these facts, realizing what's there, not giving us decent factual information to work with and then drawing conclusions from it. That's not their job. Their job is to persuade us to go a certain way, using certain tricks that work with the general human psyche to make them jump for one thing or another. There's some really fascinating experiments that were done by marketing to show how you can get somebody to go a particular way, and these types of tricks are used, unfortunately, when it comes to, presidential campaigns, senatorial campaigns, political, ideologically run programs, and so on and so forth. And these are the sorts of things that Vidal has a problem with. In a documentary that I talked about, he quoted a line from John F. Kennedy, who said once that when it came to American politics, it is the appearance of things which matters. The appearance of things. Not how things actually are, but the appearance of them. That's what's important when it comes to politics here in this country. I find it to be a very important statement to analyze. How much does that statement actually fit if we look at events, recent events and, fairly recent events in American history? Well, let's start with something that was going on at the time that Kennedy was around. The Cold War. Cold War supposedly started because the United States saw Russia as a threat. You had dictators like Stalin running it, and they were hell-bent on taking over Europe and maybe even the world with their communist ideology. And the United States, as a defender of freedom, had to put a stop to that. They had to, and this is where the rising tensions began. Russia building up their armaments and armies in order to take over, and the U.S. building up their armaments in order to safeguard the world. Not going to outright straight up hostile war yet, because of course that would be devastating for the planet, but just in case things happen, keeping Russia in check. That was the appearance of it. Our patriotic duty to, hold back the scourge of communism, the Red Scare. But that was a fabrication. In truth, the Cold War started because the United States was trying to force Russia to accept Poland as a independent state, something that Russia had a problem with because that happened to have been the place where most of their invasions were coming from. Not to mention the fact that people in Poland had no problem perceiving Russia as a threat and wouldn't have had a problem engaging in war with them. This is something that you can research for yourself. This is not, conjecture here. This is something that was known. In fact, that's how, Germany was able to, they went through Poland in order to invade Russia in the first place during World War II. Not to mention that Stalin felt a little bit, kind of like the tables had turned on them after there were certain concessions that they were willing to go through after World War II with Roosevelt. Roosevelt was like, oh yeah, after the war is over, you can do this, you can do that. Oh yeah, that's great. And then, and Truman gets in it and the whole thing just gets, topsy-turvy. All of a sudden, you're the enemy. Not to mention that Russia exactly wasn't in any position to take over Europe after World War II. I mean, if you've studied anything about the war, you know that Russia wasn't exactly in a, they weren't exactly in a good position after the war. They got pretty damn devastated, during that war. Yeah, they were able to push the Germans back, but afterwards they had a lot to do with rebuilding their own freaking country. To even think about, okay, now we're going to take over Europe. Good luck if that's your plan. They weren't prepared for that, and they knew they weren't prepared for that. But the Red Scare, the threat of that, the threat of communism, the appearance of that was what was more important to present to the people. Now, if you've got plans of being able to be an aggressor yourself, basically telling the rest of the world, okay, you guys are devastated and you owe us, so now we're in charge. And we're going to dictate how world policy is going to be going from this point on. Latin America, you will not touch. That's our property. We will do whatever the hell we want over there. Even if that means completely destroying democratic regimes over there and setting them up with dictatorships that later on showed just how brutal they were. We will, for instance, help Britain to set up, businesses over in Iran that the people in Iran would not like, and then they don't like it, so we help topple their regime. But no, it's the Red Scare. That's the menace. They're the ones taking over the world. See? And people bought it because it's the appearance of things which matters. The appearance being that it's Russia that's the problem. They're the ones going around the world and toppling governments in order to institute their own ideologies. That was what's more important. That's one example. How about, let's go ahead a few years. Let's speed ahead. Let's talk about, when Reagan was popping up, where it's mourning in America. After the depression of the 70s and all the crap going on there, we're taking the country back and we're bringing us back to our glory, where righteousness and religious values and good old Americanism gets to shine. Our nobility, our patriotism will shine through. People will see the value of red, white, and blue again. The God-fearing country. That was the appearance. Never mind all the rampant corruption going on in Wall Street, the uncheckedness of how they were going, which ended up leading to a major market crash that they had to recover from. Never mind all the scandals that went on during his administration. You can look it up. There was quite a few of them. It wasn't just the Iran-Contra scandal. That was just one of the biggest ones, but there were other little ones. Lots of guys had to go into court over stuff that went on during that administration. And of course, all the little war crimes that were going all over the place. And let's not, of course, forget the arming of Afghanistan and, the militarization of the Mujahideen, which later on became some of the terrorist groups that we're dealing with these days. And of course, since Reagan came down with Alzheimer's disease, he could later on go on and say, I don't remember any of this shit, which he actually, I can't recall. I don't remember. He may have forgotten, but the rest of the world hasn't. And that's the problem. But that doesn't matter. Especially when it comes to certain people who want to cling to the so-called legacy of Reagan and how great those years were. Because remember, it's the appearance of things which matters. The appearance of this great right-wing rule of the 80s that was just absolutely perfect. Where America was rising to the top. What about the Clinton years? Clinton, who is hailed as, a champion progressive. You got even minorities rooting for the guy as if he had the same pigmentation in his skin as they did. And, of course, the right wing hate the guy. Because of all the, look what he's done. He's ruined stuff. He's made this place even more of a welfare state. He made us look weak around the world. Again, the appearance. Never mind the fact that it was under his administration that a lot of social programs got crippled. That a lot of new stipulations went into place when it came to, food assistance and things like that. That haven't been lifted. Several, aggressive actions around the world during his administration. It's kind of funny how during Republican presidencies, there's a lot of focus on, you know, wars and, acts of aggression around the rest of the world. You're doing this. This is akin to war crimes. But then when a Democrats in, no one really talks about, the types of crap that they're doing around the world, which amounts to the same thing. A lot of that was going on to him. Or, in case anybody, like, to take, for example, when it went on in Haiti, when he, all the crap that was going on there, he effectively helped to make things worse. Like, for instance, when they were supposedly giving aid down there, one of his ways of doing it was to flood them with American rice, when rice is one of Haiti's chief exports. But now you're flooding them with our own rice as aid, which means that they now can't even sell, the rice to their own selves, much less abroad, which cripple their economy even more. Yeah. But no. All that doesn't matter, because he's supposed to, the image that he has is of this great progressive person, and that's what's more important. The appearance of things, which matters. W. Bush. I wanted to go into like Senior Bush, but that was a bit more complicated. I should go into that, but I'm running out of time. Yeah, considered like an, idiot president. But, under him at the time, it was like, he's also going to like get rid of the corruption of the Clinton years and, the tomfoolery that went on over there. Going to be a staunch conservative. He's going to fight the evils. There's a war to be won, the war on terror. Never mind the fact that we went into Iraq under false pretenses, which came out later. Oh, we need to, they hate our freedom, so we need to do whatever we can to stop, the incursion on our freedoms, even though the actions you took afterwards were the biggest threats to our freedom than people abroad. I mean, just looking at the Patriot Act alone, there's a lot to be said on how that limited more of our freedoms than anything a bunch of terrorists could do coming over here. That doesn't matter. Again, the appearance of things matters. At the time, these days you can't really get away with, it's more or less now just blown open what his administration has done and tried to get away with. The problem is a lot of these things were still kept by the Obama administration. They didn't exactly lift the Patriot Act. Didn't exactly get rid of the FISA bill. No, Obama kept that. I mean, these days everybody is like, oh yeah, he's probably one of the best presidents we ever. Some people are saying that. Some people say he's the worst president we ever had. But those are looking back on his legacy and saying, oh, he was one of the greatest, progressives. We're gonna miss him. It's gonna be a major shame. He's helped to fix things. Never mind. Even though progressives here are clinging on to this idealized look of his presidency. Let's forget about the drone strikes, the assassinations that his administration, did like crazy. Bombing places full of innocents. Let's forget about that. Let's forget about the kowtowing to Wall Street ever since the first days when the Affordable Care Act was going through, when it could have actually meant something when they, if they had kept the government option in there. But no, they took that part out and they pretty much let the healthcare industry themselves write much of the bill when they were the problem in the first place. Because remember, it wasn't just the fact that people didn't have health insurance. The problem was also the fact that it was too freaking expensive for what we were getting out of it. And it was the healthcare industry causing these costs to get out of control. Which, by the way, for people saying that Obamacare made things skyrocket, no, it was the industry that made it skyrocket. In a weird sort of way, the act kind of helped to curtail some of the costs, but not by much. They were already rising. I mean, look at what the Farmer Bros been doing, or what they were doing with diabetes medication. This is a normal practice. They just jack up the price of medications because they can. They jack up the price of, procedures because they can. It's little to do with the bill itself. But Of course, those take the teeth out of it to keep the, the guys causing the problem happy. Housing crisis. Let's not really go after the people who caused it. Let's not bring them, to jail. Let's not try them for what they've done. Let's put regulations that have no real teeth, because we don't want them coming after us. And then, of course, for all the people saying, no, he's a great symbol for, how far we've come with civil rights, let's not forget the fact that the Black Lives Matter movement showed up during his presidency. I wonder how many people actually think about that. But no, we're not supposed to think about that. We're supposed to be thinking about the idealized vision of that. We're not supposed to be looking at any of the faults, because it's the appearance of things which matters. Doesn't really matter what side of the political divide you're on. The appearance, the image you're trying to portray is more important than what's actually going on. And it now accumulates to our current presidency, where they've outright pretty much told you that facts no longer matter. Where we can have a spokesperson just saying that, oh, he's relying on alternative facts. Where someone can straight up say to your face on national TV that something's going on when it clearly isn't. When he can tell you one day, oh, I'm for this, and then later on sign a bill that goes completely against it. But then still go, I'm completely for it. When they can say, I don't know what you're talking about, where you're getting this from. I've always stood for this, when you can just go back on, just go and look up video clips where you said the opposite. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is the appearance, the image that they're trying to give you. That's what's important in American politics. If anybody's looking at this right now going, how the hell did we get here? It's been building for quite some time. Because as one president had already stated, it is the appearance of things which matters. All we're seeing is the results of that maxim. Catch you guys later.